Emily had not spoken in 2 years. Not a single word. Not since the night her husband died. Before that night, she was a bright, young graphic designer from Portland. The kind of person who saw beauty in everything. Her friends said she could turn even a broken street sign into art. But now, she sat in a white room at a private psychiatric hospital called Ravenshade Institute. Silent as stone, sketching shapes that only she seemed to understand. When people talked to her, she never responded. When doctors asked questions, she only stared through them, as if she was looking at something that wasn't there. The world called her the silent designer. Then one day, a new therapist arrived. His name was Dr. James, not the kind who liked formalities. He had heard about Emily long before he met her. Some said she had lost her mind after the fire that killed her husband. Others said she had lost something deeper, her will to exist. Dr. James wasn't like the others. He believed that silence was just another form of communication, and he wanted to understand what Emily's silence was trying to say. Every afternoon he would sit across from her, a small notebook in his hand, and just watch her draw. Her sketches were strange, endless spirals, dark shapes, and symbols that looked like fragments of something bigger. Sometimes she'd pause for minutes, staring at her pencil as if she didn't remember where she was. Weeks passed. Not a single word. Not even a sound. But Dr. James began to notice something odd. The longer he watched her sketches, the more familiar they started to look. The shapes she drew weren't random. They were layouts, design templates like digital screens. But mixed in with them were hidden faces, distorted and almost invisible. And one day, he saw a face he recognized. His own. He didn't mention it to anyone. He just kept coming back. He told himself it was a coincidence. Maybe she'd seen his photo on her patient file. But part of him felt something heavier. A pull. A memory he couldn't quite reach. Late one night, James stayed after hours in his office. He spread out Emily's sketches across the floor, trying to make sense of them. One page had a burned corner, the same shade of black as smoke. On it, Emily had drawn a room, a bed, and two figures. One standing, one lying still. Next to the bed, she'd drawn a lighter. James felt his throat tighten. He remembered the report. Her husband had died in a fire that started in their bedroom. Emily had been found unconscious on the floor, barely breathing. The fire had destroyed almost everything except her digital tablet, melted but still recognizable. He kept staring at the drawing, tracing the lines with his finger. And then he noticed a reflection in the window, a shadow behind him. When he turned, no one was there. The next morning, he visited her again. She was sketching something new, a face made of ash and smoke. And as she drew, he realized the face wasn't her husband's. It was his. That night, Dr. James couldn't sleep. His mind kept circling the same question. Why him? He went back to her file, hoping for something he'd missed before. Buried deep in the old police report, he found a witness statement. A neighbor who'd seen a man leaving the house before the fire started. A man wearing a gray hoodie. A man who matched his description. But that was impossible. He'd never met her before this job. Or had he? James poured himself a drink and tried to calm down. But his hands were shaking. A piece of memory flickered. Smoke, sirens, firelight. And a voice, a woman's voice, calling his name. The next day, he tried to confront her. He sat in front of Emily and said softly, "Do you remember me?" She didn't move, didn't blink. Instead, she slid her sketchbook across the table. He opened it. Inside was a digital mock-up, a magazine ad she'd once designed. The tagline read, "Design the life you want." Below it was a photo of a smiling couple, Emily and her husband. And standing in the background, blurred but visible, was him. His face. The world seemed to tilt. He couldn't breathe. And suddenly the memory hit, full force. He hadn't been a stranger that night. He'd been the client. 2 years ago, before the fire, James had worked at an ad agency that hired freelance designers. Emily was one of them. He'd been the one to reject her project after she accused the company of stealing her work. She'd come to confront him late one evening. They argued, loudly, and in the chaos, the lamp fell. The fire started. He'd run. She hadn't. He'd buried it all, convinced himself she hadn't seen him. But she had. And now, she remembered. Emily lifted her eyes for the first time in 2 years. Her gaze was calm. Her lips moved. Barely. One word. Remember? James froze. The walls felt smaller, the air too heavy to breathe. He left the room and never came back. The next day, the hospital staff found his office empty, his car gone, and his resignation letter on the desk. Emily hasn't spoken since, but she doesn't need to. Her designs now are calm. Clean lines, soft colors, almost peaceful. Sometimes she draws a figure standing near a fire just watching. They say silence can heal, but sometimes silence just waits until the truth finally burns through.